How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and welcome back to our playthrough of the Blackstaff Campaign for Stronghold 3. Today we're going to be finally completing the last mission here, chapter number 5, the Marshal.
We wore them down, and they retreated. Word spread about our battles. The people of the island rose up to join us. We can take this back, I told them. We can take back this island and banish the Brotherhood forever. We heard that the leader of the Brotherhood's armed forces, the Marshal, was preparing his troops. I told our troops that we had to leave now, to take the fight to them whilst they still prepared. The element of surprise would be what allowed us to take the upper hand. We marched to the Archbishop's Abbey, fortified like no castle I had ever seen. This would be the toughest fight of our lives. Plan your assault of this fortress carefully. It is multi-layered and defended by the 2 remaining rats and then the Marshal himself, who commands the inner stronghold, where fighting will be fierce.
Okay, so here we go. Going to be playing on the hard difficulty as usual. Let's get started. So here we are on the map. Now, this mission is a little bit tricky. It's going to take a lot longer than a lot of the other missions, and that's kind of why I'm doing this audio here in post. Because the mission itself requires you to play it on the very fast difficulty to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. The general strategy that I'm going for here is I'm going to build some bakeries right away because we start off with a fair amount of wheat in the stockpile. So you can see there, I've got the windmill up, I've got my bakeries up, and then I got like 3 or 4 wood camps. That's 4 wood camps to get started with, and a couple of houses or hovels. It depends upon the size that you're going to be placing. So what this does is it allows me to take advantage of a lot of the resources that I have instead of relying on things like apples, because apples are something that works good at the start of the game, but long term it tends to take up more space. So instead I decided I start off with all of these hops, all of this wheat. I might as well focus on those types of food instead of introducing new types of food instead, right? I can make an inn, and that will allow me to, and there we get some reinforcements. I can make an inn, and that will allow me to boost my popularity that way instead of having additional food types. Getting a wall built there, where you just saw me build a wall, can be a little bit tricky. You can get it where they can't pass through here, and that's what I ultimately do. That's what I'm trying to do here. It's Stronghold 3. You probably shouldn't bother with walls if you can. If you have enough archer firepower to mow down any troops that come past, you can just throw up a tower and forget about the wall entirely. But for this very first attack, I went with a wall, and I think overall it's probably a good idea because you don't start with a lot of troops. And that's one thing that I also needed to do, was get to the armory and barracks built as soon as possible, because this is one of the harder missions at the very beginning in Stronghold 3. I'm trying to think of other missions that were equal in difficulty. And maybe there were a couple in the later parts of the Stronghold 3 military campaign. But by and large, this one is one that, you know, it throws you right into it. You're attacked pretty early on overall. So I decided, right there you can see, additional wheat, which is going to be important because we're going to be focusing mostly on wheat for the economy. That's how we're going to feed the peasants. We're going to be using bread as the food type. And once we get some wood in here, I'm going to be placing down 2 Fletchers because we need additional bows quite badly. And we don't have the gold to buy them, obviously, so we're going to have to build them, and the sooner we get them built, the better. The general principle that I've been going for here, you might notice, I'm really spamming out those woodcutter huts, and you kind of have to do that to keep on top of things, because building an economy like the one I'm building here requires a lot of wood. I'm going for bakeries, breweries, Fletcher's workshops. All these buildings that I'm building there require 50 wood each. And if you're only going to use like 3 woodcutters, it's just going to hold back the building of your economy for too long, and it can allow you to become overwhelmed. Now, granted, this mission does not really have scaling attacks, so the attacks that you start holding off against in the early parts of the game are the same types of attacks you face in the later parts of the game. But at the same time, if you are overwhelmed during those earlier attacks, you know, that's game over. Granted, it's better to fail early than to prolong it, to drag it out and fail for a later attack. It's debatable, I suppose. I haven't noticed the attacks getting significantly harder as the mission progresses, you know, as you spend more time on the map. I think that would be a really cool thing, something that I've never been forced into myself, because a lot of the times with Stronghold, what you can usually do, you can't even see those units there because they look like mud themselves. But a lot of the times what Stronghold does is it kind of gives you open-ended missions where it doesn't... sometimes missions are time limited, but the ones that aren't are really not unlimited, are very unlimited. There is really no constraint on the amount of time you can spend, which leads to me spending inordinate amounts of time. One way you could pressure players into, you know, building economies faster and sieging faster is by throwing attacks at them that will become impossible to defend against if they wait too long. And to me, you know, you could replace the standard mission timer with attacks like that would effectively act as a natural kind of timer. And, you know, I kind of like that idea. I think it's a lot more organic. It makes a lot more sense that way. So, in regards to the economy here, I got 2 of the stone quarries up and going. We're getting more stone because the side on the right is not the only place we're being attacked from. So now that I have enough stone here, I'm putting up the largest tower I have access to. And then I like to do a little wall with some stairs when I don't really have enough stone for like a complete tower setup, right? Because I plan on putting up one more tower there yet, which I'll do later. And here I'm running out of food because, unlike in previous games, Stronghold 3 not quite as productive, it feels, in terms of bread. The amount of bread you need to feed your population on normal rations, and that's an important thing too, because a lot of other games, normal rations, you would easily overproduce food. In Stronghold 3, not quite so much. You usually have to depend on additional types of happiness, like ale or religion, where you can use candles in a church to provide that same popularity. And in previous games, you could usually count on your granary to be overproducing to such an extent that it wasn't an issue. You wouldn't have to focus on those other types if you just overproduced food. But yeah, you probably won't be turning up your granary rations a whole lot in Stronghold 3, I've found. Usually you rely on other things to get that popularity up there. But look at all those wood camps. I mean, I do need that many wood camps to get this economy started. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but you just absolutely have to spam wood camps. And that's occupying a good portion of my overall population. Maybe 33% of them are employed as woodcutters at this point. But the good news is that we don't have to have them like that forever. There I built the iron mine. The general idea behind the iron mine is we do need iron to build armor for the crossbowmen and for the swordsmen, or the knights that I'm going to use later on, because we have access to knights in this mission. Here is the first attack from the left side of the map. You can see a couple of catapults, nothing too significant. They maybe had 2 swordsmen, it wasn't a whole lot. And then here we have a general problem with Stronghold 3, or a lot of Stronghold games too. The archers can't shoot through walls. I don't think archers could ever shoot through walls, now that I think about it. Never mind. And here we go with the second tower. And I realized that I was not going to be able to get or fire at those men-at-arms there. You can see they're throwing spears at my quarry workers, which is never a good thing. So I decided, gotta engage them with the monks, and that was another reason for putting that tower there, is I realized one single tower would not be enough to cover the entire economy. I'm not going to wall in my entire castle, which is something, it's a common theme you'll see throughout Stronghold 3. Is that, in general, building full castles is not recommended. It's a towers game. It's like a tower defense type game. When it comes to setting up defenses, you don't need to have everything walled in a lot of the time, because simply having towers strategically placed around your castle would usually do more to deter enemies than actually putting up walls everywhere, because walls allow enemies to focus on very poorly defended aspects of your castle. And I put up, I think, the Artillator's Workshop and the... What? Oh, there are wolves attacking. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Like I said before, if you have well-placed towers, you can deal with domestic problems like that quite easily as well. I put up an Artillator's Workshop, though, and an Armorer to start building the weapons that we need to build crossbows. Granted, I don't need that many crossbows. Maybe 3, 4, 5 per tower is more than sufficient. And I'm gonna have like 3 towers when this is all done. They, like I said before, they don't attack with very many armored units. They have some pikemen, but once again, this is Stronghold 3. Unlike games, I would say such as Stronghold 2, when I think about Stronghold 2, you really couldn't use archers a lot of the time to reliably defend against swordsmen. I don't feel like that's the case in Stronghold 3. Stronghold 3, it really does seem to me that you can effectively defend against a lot of attacks simply by using your archers. It's just, the archers are so overpowered in this game once again that you can use them quite effectively or against armored units even. Maybe not knights. Knights probably not, but pikemen and swordsmen for sure. So I decided to build a gatehouse here. General idea behind this is because once I start recruiting, I want to be able to get them outside the castle. It turns out this was a bad idea, as you'll see in just a bit. So I'm attacked from this side right away. And if you don't get units on top of walls and stuff before the enemies can shoot at them, it's just a bad thing. So, you know, I was wasting too much time here. I shouldn't have been. It took me too long to get those stairs up, and by the time I was getting these archers and the spearmen up on top of there, you know, the enemy has their archers already within range, sitting there waiting to shoot at me. Which means as my units go up the wall, they're all just getting absolutely massacred. It's a sad, sad thing. And, you know, they don't take so much time to reload their bows and stuff. They didn't really have a chance against the enemy. So that was a very bad decision right there. In hindsight, like, what would I do instead? Probably just station 1 tower, forget about the gatehouse and everything. Just do 1 tower next to a barracks and let them try to walk into my economy, like on the left side or the, however you want to say it, the west side maybe of the castle here, where I just have 2 towers, and if they want to walk into my economy, they can, but they're gonna get mown down by the archers. So that's what I should have done. You know, it's my fault for actually wanting it to look like a castle, but this is Stronghold, in which you usually don't actually build castles. The most effective defenses are going to be the types of defenses you build with towers. It's a tower defense game. So I decided to send the monks that I got for free and the rangers that I got for free over there to engage the archers and whatever's left of the men-at-arms that are knocking down that wall there. Luckily, the attacks that come from that side are not that frequent, and they also are not that strong. They never have anything worse than archers and men-at-arms, which are, at range, they are dangerous, but like when you engage them in close combat, here, you're relatively safe. Like, you don't have much to worry about. And just took care of them that way. So this is largely what the game is about until you actually start attacking. This is the build-up phase, I guess you could say. It's the part of the game where we are focusing on building the economy and maybe recruiting some units that we can later use to attack outwards. If you're faster at building the economy than me, then this is not going to take quite as long. And if you don't make as many mistakes as I do, it's not going to take as long either. I decided to delete the barracks again because I'd rather use the barracks as the stairs that go up to the wall here. So you can see right there, I just rebuilt the barracks. I was trying to get the wall to match up with the cliff there. I think I decided that even if it doesn't... Oh, yeah, we have disease. So you want to build an apothecary for that to help reduce it. Some people might be leaving. Some peasants, I should say, might be leaving the castle. In this mission, I did have... Oh, yes, that's right. Even though the attacks are not that big, like exact same problem again, homing arrows on archers while they're walking up the walls. And they just... My archers didn't stand a chance here. They just couldn't defeat them. So I was getting pretty annoyed by the whole thing at this point. Like, not that much time had elapsed. I think I'm sending the rangers up there. They're getting shot at too. Not that time had much... Not that time... What? Why do I keep saying not that time? Not that much time had elapsed between those 2 attacks. As you can see there, I barely had enough time to get a barracks up and going. So it really started to annoy me that I couldn't get archers stationed on top of there to save my life, it seemed like. Yeah. It was poorly played. In hindsight, I would just focus on having one tower. Forget the walls, forget the gatehouse. Just let troops walk by the tower and you're going to mow them down. And it should work out fine. It's not like it's a huge area where they could walk outside the range of the tower. So that's usually not a problem. So I do have 2 towers on the left side of the map here, but I don't have any units in them. I pulled the rangers out of that one tower, but now I'm putting them back in because the left side attack is now using pikemen in their assault. They have pikemen units and those take a little bit longer for archers to kill, so it makes sense to have more units over there. I don't like... It's interesting that you get rangers so frequently because they're one of the types of units that I just can't find a good use for, unfortunately. And apparently I have enough wood at this point, so I decided to delete about half of my woodcutters. Which, yeah, it looks like I have 194 wood left, I guess, and most of the economy is built by this point. So the rest of this mission is largely going to be focusing on actually attacking. Obviously, I need to make an army already, but once it gets down to that, because I think I slowed down the game here as well, because it was just moving along too fast. Usually I like to play this mission on, I'm trying to think here, it's like either fast or very fast. So if you want to get it done in a reasonable amount of time, just play it on very fast all the time. If you can handle it. Apparently I can't. And, you know, there's just nothing is really happening here. It's one of the problems with this mission. It's the build-up phase. You know, it's only, what, 16 minutes in or so? And I've already run out of things to talk about this setup here. I think I've covered pretty much all of it. You know, we've got our bread economy. You can see the hops farm and the brewers. We're making some ale. I've got the inn placed up top behind the iron mine. We've got stone. We've got iron coming in. Oh, I still haven't built my honor goods yet. I'm not sure. I think this is when I started recruiting crossbows. So if I was just a little bit faster with this economy stuff here, because once we actually start attacking something else, oh, I decided to put up a second windmill there because we're almost out of food. And the reason we're almost out of food is because we are not producing enough flour with our one windmill to supply all of those bakeries. People have the nerve to be unsure of my leadership, huh? It just goes to show. 2 towers. I like that setup right there. Connected by a little bit of wall. You got your stairs. I think it looks pretty good. And I think right there I went ahead and built the armorer's workshop and the blacksmith. Because I was planning on using some knights for the final assault. It's really interesting that, and a bit unfortunate, I haven't showcased the actual castle that we need to attack at the end of this. This is a mission that requires you to storm through about 3 different castles to win. And there are 2 rats and the Marshal, I think he's called. And the Marshal is the final one you have to kill. So we have 3 enemies here that we're supposed to kill. Since Stronghold 3 doesn't have any AI in it, they're not actually playing against me. It's a standard scenario setup where you have scripted invasions and stuff. And those are the types of attacks that are sent. That was another problem with the AI in Stronghold games. They could never scale attacks very well. If you survived for the early parts of the mission in any sort of skirmish against the AI, you were guaranteed to win. It was just a matter of time. Even in Stronghold Crusader 2, which was the most recent Stronghold game. Stronghold Crusader 2, one of the most annoying things about it is that unlike previous games, they would just rebuild their castles while the castle was under siege. So if you think about it, you've got catapults tearing walls and towers down. You got troops stationed around the keep, ready to invade or something. And there's the AI just rebuilding walls where they shouldn't be allowed to rebuild walls. Like, I have no problem really with the AI cheating and getting free resources and stuff. That's okay with me, but they should obey rules when it comes to enemy units being too close to be able to place a building. I don't think they should be allowed to place down buildings, especially defensive buildings, right on top of my enemy, right on top of units that are enemies to that castle, right? My units in this case, but they shouldn't be allowed to do that. I don't think. That's what really bugged me about Stronghold Crusader 2. Anyway, I think okay. Now we're actually starting to do something here. I've got the siege camp up, and once I get some mantlets recruited from the siege camp and a few catapults, we can actually begin an assault.
Our peasants are complaining again, my liege. The enemy are attacking.
But up until that point, apparently we're going to be dealing with boring enemy attacks here that do not present any sort of challenge. It's the exact same copy-pasted attack over and over and over again.
Get up on those walls! The Black Plague is upon us, my liege. We are all doomed.
And then you have events that honestly are not that interesting. This has been a problem with Stronghold, I would say, since maybe Stronghold Crusader. These events that they just ultimately become popularity slider tweakers, right? When you see an event like the Black... Oh, I should probably mention this. I'm building some honor buildings here, so you can see I placed on Hunter's Post, a vegetable garden, and the bee farm, and the vineyard as well, because we need to get a fair amount of honor to be able to recruit knights. And to me, it would be better just to produce the honor goods myself rather than buy them. I can buy them, but I decided not to. But getting back to the slider tweaking, a lot of the events in Stronghold games, I would say, past the original. I don't know why the original has such a favorable spot in my mind. I suppose it was a slider tweaker too. But popularity worked differently back then, so maybe it wasn't quite so much. But a lot of the events come down to you needing to click a slider a couple of times, right? Oh, we have the plague has descended upon us. Better turn up ale rations. Oh, the woodcutters are afraid of something haunting the trees. Better turn up church rations. I don't know. Candle rations, I guess. They seem to consume. Apparently, burning a lot of candles makes peasants happy. Who would have thought? But yeah, that's how candle rations work in Stronghold 3. Oh, okay, it's raining out. What does this mean? Well, it means time to tweak the sliders again. It's just the events themselves are not that significant. You think about hard rain. It could do interesting things, couldn't it? It could flood farms. It could make your units move slower because it's raining out really hard. They could limit their visibility so they wouldn't be able to... There are just so many interesting things that some of these events could do that are not usually realized. Even things like the plague. The plague doesn't stick around. Even if you don't build an apothecary, it would just naturally go away over time. It ultimately is just a slider tweaker of an event. And that's something that I've... Like, you can see me. I just keep going back to the sliders all the time because all you need to do is tweak sliders to get over these events. So it's a slider tweaker. Slider tweaking events. I think I've driven that point home. It was rather interesting that a lot of the times I tend to repeat myself because repetition is key to memory. What is turned to mush? Hoof mange. Oh. No, repetition is key to memorizing something. And it just strikes me as a bit strange for people to criticize me for repeating certain concepts multiple times. I'm not saying I repeat myself immediately after I initially, say what it is I wanted to say. I deleted the stone quarries there, by the way, because I had enough stone and didn't need to rebuild any defenses really, or build any more, and repairing walls should not cost that much. But it seems a little bit silly that over let's say a month period, this is something I've noticed with somebody that frequently plays with me on the Discord that I have for, I use Discord while I stream as a communications platform. And they've criticized me for suggesting the same thing multiple times about how to improve a game. I said, this game could be improved. Let's say week 1. I say I think this game could be improved by changing this, and that. And then I'll revisit the subject about 2 weeks later. And they're like, yeah, you already mentioned that. And I was just trying to get the message across that, one thing repetition is key to memory. If I mention something that I thought was a good idea multiple times to you, you're more likely to behave amicably towards the idea, right? The familiar is always more well recepted. Recepted? It's more impressionable, more suggestive than foreign concepts. So for one thing, there's that. It's important even when you're repeating it to the same person. And secondly, I'm repeating it to more than one person because somebody else might be watching the stream that day. And I felt it was a little bit unfair. So here we go. First attack. Finally, we're making some progress. We're finally moving forward here. It's good to see we're finally getting something interesting done here. I brought the catapults along to destroy those stake traps there. So that way, you know, we don't have to pay a penalty for getting them removed. If we don't do it that way, what'll ultimately end up happening is the archers or whatever units you send in there will take a lot of damage while trying to destroy the stake traps. And it's probably one of the reasons why the enemy AI will refuse to destroy stake traps with anything but a catapult. I pointed this out in an earlier Blackstaff mission where you could effectively glitch out the AI and prevent them from attacking you at all if you just put up stake traps, because the AI did not have catapults, so they couldn't destroy them. I thought that was a bit interesting. So this is the first rat's defenses that we're trying to get past here. My general army composition in these situations is going to be mantlets and archers. So archers are really powerful, as I've pointed out in Stronghold 3, and using mantlets to defend them from enemy archer fires allows us to be very effective with them. So that's generally the composition I go for here. It's really simple and it's really cheap. When you think about it, archers do not cost much gold. They don't cost any honor. The mantlets cost hardly any gold at all, but you do have to be careful. Right there you can see a couple of peasants are engaging my archers. They can just tear through, because the thing is your shields actually defend enemy units. If you're wondering why when enemy units bust into your portable shield array or your portable shield formation and just absolutely decimate it, even though there are archers standing in there shooting at them, is because enemy units also get the benefits, the bonuses applied from those portable shields, which means it's impossible to shoot at them. They have to be killed via melee. There's no other way. So you either bring along melee troops within the shield formation, or you get the hell out of there when you're being attacked by melee with your portable shield plus archer formation, because otherwise you're just going to get decimated. This has happened to me multiple times in Stronghold 3, and it wasn't towards, I think, until I started the Blackstaff campaign that I actually fully realized what was going on with that. And it really is unpleasant. But like I said before, you know, most of the units here that we're using are very cheap to produce. So archers are like 12 gold, I think. And the mantlets are 10 gold, so it's a very cheap, I guess there's no better way to describe it, very cheap army to set up. So I decided to take those archers and the portable shields and just sort of camp the spawn of where a lot of those attacks from the right side originate. The general idea behind doing that is because if I don't, every time I try to send reinforcements to my existing force as we move further on, they risk the chance of running into those enemy units as they spawn and work their way towards my castle. So I want this area to be guaranteed clear, so that way I can set up rally points further up this map, and I don't have to worry about them being intercepted by those enemy attacks that originate from the spawn down there. Because even though we've cleared out this area, the enemy will still continue to attack from that part of the map. I really don't need to destroy this stuff. This is just mostly a waste of time here. It doesn't do me any favors whatsoever. But it's always fun to destroy a castle. So I guess it gets points for being fun. And I probably needed more time to recruit more archers and whatnot. By the way, those catapults, you might notice they took some damage because I didn't keep them far enough away from their targets. And when you do that, what ultimately ends up happening is you end up hurting your own units. So here's one of our first attacks that comes in. You can see they're mown down quite effectively, but I think I reorganized it a little bit, the formation of that attack.
Setting off now. Where is the heathen's blood to be spilt?
And I brought in some of the other units like the monks. I don't think I brought in the rangers. The monks, though, I wanted to get rid of, so I had them attack the stake traps up ahead. And hopefully they'll take some damage from that and just get out of my way. And this was a really bad idea the way I was doing this. Oh my god. It hurts. It physically hurts to look at it. Because instead of pressing B on the barracks, I went and moused back every single time. I'm usually pretty good at bringing up the barracks by pressing B. Not that time, though. I did it like a true scrub. Oh, it was so bad. It just pained me to see it in post when I'm commenting over this stuff. I realized what a failure that strategy was. Yep. Tweaker events. Slider tweaking events. Such as Black Cats. Yeah, so there we go. I just wanted to get rid of those monks there. Because here's the reason why I would do that. You are limited in the number of troops you can have, which is really dumb, in my opinion. It should be an army limit based on the power rating of the army, because otherwise you could have a very strong army or a very weak army with the same number of units. If all of my units are knights, my army is very strong. If all my units are peasants, my army is very weak, and yet I'll still be capped at 300 units because apparently the game can't support anymore. And you might have noticed that from time to time that the game is performing quite poorly here, and it's true, it does. Even though I have a GTX 1070, on 1440p, this game performs poorly when there are a lot of entities on the screen. It will drop down to like 30 frames per second. So from time to time, you might notice the frame rate becoming a little bit more choppy, and that's probably why. Even though I do record at 30 frames a second, so it's probably not that noticeable when I think about it. So here we are advancing on the actual keep of the rat. This is the first rat. And I just use the archer strategy once again, you know, archers plus mantlets, mow down everything in your path, send in the catapults to actually destroy the stake traps so we don't take any damage from them. And it works out pretty good. So no complaints there. I'm not sure, maybe I could have done this a little bit more effectively if I'd been better at bringing my units up quickly. Because right now you can see the archers really aren't making much progress. We're just waiting for the catapults to do their thing. So as you can see here, the map sort of wraps around. I haven't given a real good overview of it yet at this point. So we're just kind of waiting. I think at this point I'm trying to figure out what the key is to bring up the siege camp. It turns out the key is V. That brings up the siege camp. As you can see, I've got it now. Because I knew what the barracks was. You know, you press B for barracks, but the siege camp, it used to be, I think, L? It used to be a different key, and then they changed it for Stronghold 3. So yeah, I don't use siege camps that much in Stronghold 3. A lot of the missions are not revolved around sieges, so it's pretty understandable that I wouldn't have remembered what they changed the key to. It reminds me of Stronghold Crusader 2, which I've already recorded some footage for, and it turns out that, you know, I gripe quite a bit about the lack of camera controls. You can't use Q and E anymore to rotate the camera. At first I thought they got rid of camera controls entirely. You would always have to use the mouse to rotate the camera. But after asking around a bit, I discovered that you can actually hold down ALT and use A and D on the keyboard to rotate it instead, which, in my opinion, is a very inferior system. Holding down ALT is worse for me than moving my fingers from A and D to Q and E. Q and E are just natural. They make sense for me to use them to rotate the camera. Like I play Don't Starve, you use Q and E. You don't hold down ALT and then use A and D on the keyboard instead of Q and E. Just bad design. And you know, fair enough. If you think that's a good design, go for it. Allow us to change it. Allow us to remap the controls if we want. So that way we don't have to put up with inane decisions like that. That was a really bad decision. I don't know who they're copying. Maybe something like StarCraft, but it's completely different from all the other games. I don't know much about StarCraft, but it's nothing like the other Stronghold games when it comes to rotating the camera. And the other games that I play as well also use Q and E to rotate the camera. All the games I play seem to use that, except for now Stronghold Crusader 2, which means I'm going to have to get used to holding down ALT because they don't holding down ALT and pressing A and D because they don't allow you to remap keys. I mean, that's the real tragedy here. It's a lack of choice. So I set rally points there for both the barracks and the siege camp, so that way whenever I recruit, the units will go ahead and take their time to walk over here, which means that we don't have to waste as much time trying to get more units across, because I will just bring up the barracks from time to time, recruit some more units when I have peasants available, and that way I don't have to worry about, you know, replenishing my army as much. You're just gradually building it over time. So here I wanted to select a few archers and some mantlets to sort of fish out or mine sweep for the pitch up here. There is quite a bit of pitch, so the reason that you want to use the mantlets as well is because otherwise the archers will just get all shot down before they have an opportunity to bait out those pitch attacks. There we can see you got most of the pitch. I think there's one more pitch left. Hopefully we can bait it out before the archer. You can see the archers are dying there pretty quickly. And now that the pitch is out of the way, we can just bring in the main assault force here. There's some hoarding on the walls, which means that our archers won't be able to shoot the archers behind the hoarding until the hoarding is destroyed. As one of the more unique aspects to make walls a little bit less worthless in Stronghold 3. I think it started in Stronghold 3. I don't recall it being in a previous game. So the hoarding is interesting. I find it to be an interesting concept, but a single well-placed shot from a catapult can, well, maybe not a single one, a couple well-placed shots from catapults can usually destroy it. So it's most certainly an early game type defense. So this is the second rat that we're approaching here. And yeah, I still don't show much of the castle. You can see a little bit of it there. We got a gatehouse ahead. So it's a clearing mission. The objective is to clear this path all the way to the Marshal. And the Marshal's up there. 20 more minutes, we should be at him. I've done worse in this mission. It's like if you don't play it on fast speed, it's going to take you like 2 hours to finish. So I most certainly recommend you playing it on a higher speed. Oh, apparently I was running out of ale, so I built another hops farm. This is probably one of the trickier parts of the attack. You would think the last castle would be hard, but it's actually this middle one right here that we're currently working on.
Your Grace? Your mark, sire?
Oh yeah, that was another thing that I learned. Apparently monks cannot attack walls. All the other units can, but monks can't. So I just sent them in there. I just want to get rid of them, as I said before, because they're not that effective as a unit. Right there you can see a whole bunch of wall artifacts. Yay, Stronghold 3 bugs. The walls cannot... They don't disappear like they're supposed to after they're being destroyed. So you'll see my units just walk right through them now. So you can see there are two gatehouses here. This is a little bit touchy because we only want to assault the top gatehouse. The bottom one, there are a lot of units down there in the tower. I wish I'd shown it. At least moused over it. There are a lot of units down there on that tower, like crossbows, archers, just that stuff. So we want to avoid it as much as possible. We're going to take some damage from the units on the left side of this tower, but it's just a gatehouse that leads outside. And then there's a path that winds from that gatehouse down to my castle. So there's really nothing else over there. We're sort of taking a shortcut here. We only need to go after the wall that's in front of us here. Even though we're taking some damage from the stuff down below. But, yeah, catapult's pretty important. Since there are continued attacks coming through here, what you'll frequently find is that we have to deal with them while we're sieging. So, you know, attacks will be sent out and our siege force will have to deal with the entirety of the attack instead of allowing our defenses, back home to deal with it. Unlike the previous rat. The previous rat was pretty easy compared to this one. And I would largely attribute the increase in difficulty here to the fact that, they continually send attacks through that area. There's just no way around it. You can't stop it. So I think at this point, I did a little bit of retreating. I wanted to move the rally points up a little bit more. So we got the barracks rally points up there. We got the siege camp rally points up there. And then we're ready for the second part. There you can see the second rat's castle. Okay, so I got my first banquet held there at 6,400 honor, which should be more than sufficient. That actually might be my second banquet at this point. It's sufficient enough to cover the cost of any knights that I recruit.
The enemy are attacking.
Yeah, I probably won't be using all of that, so I went ahead and deleted the banquet buildings. And there's another attack. I wish I could effectively use the minimap in Stronghold 3, I just have never figured out a way to do it. So I usually end up scrolling the map using the arrow key, or the WASD keys. It would have been nice if I could. Some games have really great mini-maps. Stronghold 3 is not one of them. So I end up doing stuff like this. It's just not accurate enough, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not accurate enough. Self-doubt. Self-doubt? Doubt. Why can't I pronounce the word doubt? Self-doubt. There. Easy. We're bringing up more shields and stuff. So, while this whole thing is playing out, I just want to mention, recently, as in like 5 minutes ago when I looked at Discord, like, sometimes the trolling is really subtle. And you can't tell if the person is just an idiot or if they're actually trolling. So what happens is a developer, or somebody representing a developer, enters my Steam group and says, we're interested, if you're interested in getting some free loot for this game, go ahead and sign up here. Granted, it's a bit self-promoty, right? It's not it's kind of a scummy thing to do, to go in there and like self-promote your game without asking about it, asking the administrator. But at the same time, it doesn't require people in my Discord to abuse that person. Call them a scammer and stuff like that. Just inform me, let me know what's going on, and I'll take a look at it. Instead, one other person, let's not paint with broad strokes here. One other person on my Discord decides to go ahead and debate them in my channel and call them names and stuff, which doesn't make me look good. And then they end up by promoting themselves as well in an equally scummy manner. Okay, if you're going to be righteous and everything, go for it. If you have morals to uphold and stuff, but if at the end of the day you just end up doing the exact same scummy stuff, then just shut your mouth. Basically, you have no position, no high ground or high horse to look down on other people from. Here we go, final assault. Not final assault, really. Final assault against the second rat. Bringing in the knights as well. We've cleared off the gatehouse and everything with the archers and just using the catapults to knock it down. Beautiful. This is how we do it. Get those towers down. There.
We are prepared. Moving catapult. Preparing.
Not a whole lot to say here, actually. The knights will do their job. They'll be able to kill the lord there. And then I'm getting the archers to... Ooh. Yeah, we had an attack come through immediately. As you can see, the attack spawned right there inside the castle courtyard. I was originally going to... Oh, we did kill Greytail, the second rat. I was going to send my archers into the keep immediately, but as you could see, the problem was an attack spawned right in the courtyard of this castle. And that will continue to happen. Simply taking this castle does not change that. So, yeah. I think once you take the castle, the attacks should stop. I think that would be a fair way to deal with it. As you can see, right, there's another attack. Even though we've taken this castle here, still continues to spawn attacks. And the rest of this, I can't believe it took me like 10 minutes to get the final attack set up here. It's a bit embarrassing when you think about it, because the last attack is really easy compared to what I've done so far here, and it should be set up in no time at all, but I didn't get it done. Try to do something like no. I don't know, I just find a lot of self-promotion really scummy, which is why I don't do it. In regards to the whole Discord situation. I think at this point, I realized I had too many units defending this tower here, so I decided to disband them. You can't disband siege equipment for some reason, but you can disband regular units in Stronghold 3. So I decided to go ahead, you know, get all those knights that I need. Had more than enough honor. It's ridiculous how much honor I overproduced for that. And you got your archers in the tower, the keep. I originally put the catapults over there, as you can see them by the left side of the screen right now. Put them over there. I was hoping that an attack would come in and get them all killed. That didn't end up happening. I think that's what ended up making it take longer for me to complete this mission now that I think about it, because I decided to do something else with them. And it was ultimately a waste of time. It didn't add any... I suppose the advantage to doing what I did is because I was waiting for the knights to get here. The knights do have a long ways to walk to get all the way up to this army, and, you know, I don't have any horses for them. They're pretty slow. Yeah, you can see all the nice bugged walls sitting around the place. I think all of those walls have been destroyed. Well, maybe, okay, 2 of them haven't. The one next to the keep and the one opposite the keep. Those are 2 walls that are still there. The rest of them are ghost walls. Yep, there's another attack, which sort of proves that I don't need the archers in the towers down below. I should have just focused on fortifying the keep up here and pulled all of my archers off of the towers that were being defended down below. That would have been the smart way to do this. As it turns out, though, I just decided to abandon the keep up here. I abandoned it. And, you know, it's not the best idea. I would have a much better time just camping the spawn, like I did on the other rat. Although this rat does have 2 spawning locations, so it would be a little bit more difficult. But I have a keep. You know, a keep is a much better vantage point than what I did for the first rat, right? I was just camping that one with archers and portable shields, or mantlets, whichever one they're called in this game, I'm not sure. I think in the games that had cats in them, they were called portable shields, but they originally started out as portable shields. You were bringing down one tower there, but as you can see, catapults are taking quite a bit of damage. I still do not show the biggest tower. You can see the biggest tower firing on my catapults though right now. That's what takes them out ultimately. I got rid of the catapults though. It's a shame I didn't even do a single pan over that tower, because it's really well fortified. It's like the biggest tower in the game. People are leaving. I said, well, I've got more than enough gold. Let's just turn most of the stuff down. So I think I turned the taxes off entirely. Yeah. And then the ale is off as well. So we're not getting any popularity from that. So I think so far this has been the mission that took the longest in all of the Stronghold 3 missions. And when it comes to the Stronghold games in general, the only game I can think of that took longer to play missions for was Stronghold 2 and Stronghold Legends. Stronghold 2 had a couple of missions that I had to break up into 2 parts, and Stronghold Legends had 1 mission that I needed to break up into 2 parts because it was going to be over an hour long. And when it gets to that point, you know, the hour mark, I like to keep everything under an hour. So when you're going over an hour, I usually break them up into 2 episodes then, but I managed to keep this one under an hour at like 55 minutes or so. Speaking of 55 minutes, we got 5 more minutes to success here. And there's also an interesting little tidbit about what happens at the end. I think I was wondering, I said, do they attack from the side anymore? I hadn't been paying attention, so I said, okay, I'll just take half of the archers and mantlets that are there and bring them up with me. And if there is an attack that comes from down there, I just leave the other half of the archers and mantlets to hopefully deal with it.
Action stations, lads.
But as you can see here, I did end up leaving the archers that were in the towers down below in those towers. I didn't bring them up, which I probably should have. I probably should have just brought them up and stationed them on top of this keep here, the keep of the second rat.
We have them, sire. We have all the...
It's really interesting that that message triggers when I get so far past the rats. You would have thought it would trigger when I captured the keep, because that was when I truly had... Oh no, I suppose I didn't. Because there were some archers defending that area right there. So even though the rat was killed, it wasn't like his castle garrison disbanded or anything. There were still enemies towards me. So bringing out the archer formation, I will say Stronghold 3 did improve our unit formation over games like Stronghold 2 and Stronghold Legends. In those games, you could almost never rely on the formation to do what it was supposed to do, in my experience. Okay, here we finally see the Marshal's castle. It's over a very narrow bridge. So, you know, it's an easy assault here. We just have our archers and we have our knights. Mousing over this area with the camera is a really janky thing, because the camera will keep bumping up and down due to the way it's bounded to the world. I'm not trying to make this obnoxious to watch. It's just the camera's all over the place when it comes to mousing around this area. Not mousing, like panning over it, I suppose, because we're using a camera. Yeah, so the archers with the mantlets take out the archers and the enemy archers in the towers, and then the knights are going to take care of melee units and knock down walls. We don't even need any siege equipment here, because the great thing about Stronghold 3, regular units can knock down walls. So I'm not going to complain about that. We're really close here though, just about finished. There goes the walls. You can see the Marshal has monks fighting for him, but that ultimately doesn't mean much. Although, apparently my knights are being fired at from through a wall, believe it or not. It's a funny thing. Sometimes your units can fire through walls and sometimes they can't, it seems, in this game. I pointed that out earlier, that my units could not fire through a wall. And here you have archers that are firing through walls. And you can see the Marshal. He's not even in his keep, interestingly enough. I think it would be more interesting if the Marshal was stationed in this keep. But yeah, this is the end of it. And as you can see, this part of the mission is pretty easy compared to some of the other stuff that was faced. Overall, I could have done this faster. As you can tell, I have very overwhelming force here. Like, there's no chance you can win against this. So if I hadn't wanted such an amazing overkill in military power, I suppose I could have shortened this up. It might be possible to get it done in like 40 minutes. There were some inefficiencies that I faced. And there you go, victory.
Victory!
So probably one of the longest missions that I've done in Stronghold 3, but we got it done. This completes the Stronghold 3 campaigns. I've completed the military, the economic, and now the Blackstaff. So for me, that completes Stronghold 3. I'll be moving on to Stronghold Crusader 2. I'm not even sure what I will do for sure.
We found the Marshal upstairs. We had him cornered. I told him that he would be spared if he told us where we could find the Archbishop. He made the decision for us. We found the Archbishop hidden in a dungeon underneath the Abbey, cowering for his life. He told us that the Marshal coerced him, forced him to be aggressive, to take measures that he never wanted. I only wanted to be a good man, he begged. I sent him back to the mainland. The land was free and safe for the first time in memory. The people asked me to stay to help them get their lives back together. I was tempted until a message came from Long Arm telling me that the wolf was still alive and that they needed my help. I left immediately. I didn't yet know that my presence in the battles to come would barely make a difference to what was to happen in the end.
Okay, so that completes chapter number 5, the Marshal for the Blackstaff Campaign. I might be moving on to another Stronghold game in the future. Just stay tuned. If it depends upon when these videos come out. So look forward to that if you're interested in more Stronghold stuff. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.